dear beloveds. I am currently in Mama Bali, currently in the pool, and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about fear, which might seem a really strange thing to do when I'm in this incredible paradise, having this very luxurious and gorgeous time before the third level retreat starts next week. And yet I think part of the reason why I'm here, and part of the reason that I feel like life feels like this and feels quite as beautiful and glorious as it is that willingness to look at fear and talk about fear and meet fear and not be afraid of fear, really. You know, what I want to talk about has been prompted by a comment on, I shared something about the true nature of fear being an illusion, and I wanted to, you know, that's what everything that I teach, but someone, a very brave and beautiful woman, commented on her fear that arose in her as a child when her father abused her. And of course I didn't want to leave that comment unaddressed. I really wanted to honor the courage that she took in sharing that. And then coincidentally, a beloved third level priestess also had an experience last night of really meeting the illusion or the truth of fear in a very dramatic kind of way, awakening way, a very dramatic sort of spiritual awakening moment, which can sometimes feel a little bit like breakthrough and breakdown can feel quite similar. So I thought the very best thing to do, because this has actually come up in a number of different ways as these things do, is talk about the anatomy of fear. And this will really just be an introduction to that. It's in fact, I realize now, going to be a core offering of the next book that I am writing, What If There Is No Problem, really talking about the anatomy of fear, because I've noticed that when I talk about fear, I think it's not necessarily translating in the way that I am intending it, because we are taught to think of fear as the physiological response very often. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. Fear as a physiological response is about keeping you safe and keeping you alive. So when you're in danger, your body will intuitively kick in and knowing that there is danger and activate you in a way that is designed to get you out of that situation. It's called the fight or flight response. So it is intuitive because it's a gut instinct or a survival intuition that sits in your solar plexus. And so it's designed, life protects life. So it's a strategy that's designed to protect you from danger. In the case of the beautiful young woman who shared her experience of fear as a child when she heard her father approaching at the times when he would abuse her, she was questioning what I was saying about fear not being real. And I wanted to be very clear that the fear that I'm talking about is not this physiological survival fear. Your body as a child knew that it was in danger, and if everything was as it should be and this travesty had not been in place in your home, that fear instinct would have protected you and kept you safe. You could have gone to someone who would have been able to protect you. Now, I don't know the circumstances of this young woman's life, but I do know that the reason why that protection didn't happen is because of unmet fear. So this is the second part of fear that I want to talk about. So your physiological survival intuition is absolutely fear to protect you. It's giving you that shot of cortisol and that adrenaline that is designed to get you up and out of the way of danger. And because of this second kind of fear being so unmet and unaddressed in our world, this young woman who commented on my post was not protected. There was a failure to protect her in her most basic human rights, and that is because of unmet fear. And what I want to explain what I mean about that. So if people are, you know, we're talking about adults now. So regardless of the circumstances of your life, regardless of the events of your life, when you reach adulthood, you have a decision to make about how you are going to respond to the events of your life. So if you have experienced trauma, abuse, suffering, regardless of what you've experienced as a child, you have a choice about how you respond to that. What will you do with your pain, to quote Caroline Myss? What will you choose to do with your pain? Some people will choose to use their fear or their pain story as a reason to justify continuing to perpetuate the suffering of others. Now, without knowing anything about the story of the young woman who commented, there is a good chance that her abuser had never taken responsibility for the suffering that they may have endured as a child. They had never gone to meet their own subconscious fear. So subconscious fear is the program that we're running from that would allow us to justify hurting another person, for example, in this case, including our own child, in such a terrible way, without ever taking responsibility. So it's that unwillingness to own our own fear and to know that that fear is going to perpetuate and go out and forward into the world and cause the suffering, both literally to those who are in the way and then energetically to anyone else or to everyone else, because all is one, the first immutable law. When we do not take responsibility for our choice about, we do not get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose how we respond. As we reach adulthood, we have a choice to respond to the experiences and events of our life in a way that can end or alchemize, make gold out of the shit, basically. So if we are in the care of people as children who have not done that, then they will simply conflict or inflict and perpetuate the suffering onto the next generation and the next generation, which in the case of the young woman who commented is exactly what happened. Now, your choice, dear woman, as an adult is what will you do with your pain? And from the little I know of you, it seems that you are choosing to transmute that pain into the gold, or to end that cycle of suffering and to end that cycle of abuse, and to take what has occurred and use it to awaken. And that's really the first part of what I wanted to talk about, the anatomy of fear. So your survival intuition, your instinct to survive is good. And if we lived in a world where everyone did take responsibility for their actions and did not use their power to hurt or harm another, so that they didn't ever have to meet their own fear and they could keep pushing those feelings down through addictive, repetitive behavior, then we would not have a world where children were harmed in that way, because people would have that sense of accountability and they would understand the first law, all is one, is that we must hold ourselves responsible for the vibration that we put into the world, because there is only oneness. But quickly, the second part that I just want to touch on is in regards to the true nature of fear, is that it is an illusion. Now, if you are in the world and you are suffering, if you are being harmed and hurt by another, if you feel like that you have no way out of that can be a very hard thing to hear, because it sounds like I'm reducing what you're experiencing. But it isn't something that we can look at with human sight. This is a metaphysical, spiritual concept, and we must be in that space in order for this to make sense to us. But when we do move into that space, when we're ready to go and meet fear as illusion, that's when we step onto the mystical path, and that's when we're willing and ready to surrender the human experience and say, even though these things occur to me, I am willing. I'm willing to see things differently. I'm willing to change my perception. This is when the miracle enters into us. And so we are looking at fear as an illusion. All that is true and real is love. Now, here I want to talk a little bit about the anatomy of love. And this really is just going to be a very quick, hard and fast introduction to these concepts. But the idea of human love is actually just the perpetuation of fear. It's ownership. It's about separation mentality. It's about believing that I will only have enough love to give to those who I've chosen to include in my circle of love. That might be who I marry or partner with, the children that I have, the pets that I have. It's all about ownership. And even if your love is pure and amazing, it's usually very conditional. The love that I'm speaking of that is true, our truth, is God consciousness, or infinite unlimited consciousness. And this has nothing to do with niceness. It's not about comfortable good feelings. It's a power in its purest form. We can only compare it to, I believe, in human terms, with compassion. Compassion is a fearless state. It's an internal state. And it's about that willingness to absolutely put down the human story of right and wrong. It's a judgment-free state. So while we're thinking in human terms, we are inside of an illusion, because inside of the dream, everything is an illusion. So we can't. Little mini break because of the internet, but I do want to wrap up anyway. So what I want to just say finally, and I will be talking about this more because it definitely is the direction my work is going, is that while we are thinking in terms of human illusion, we will always be confused by the world. We will not understand suffering and why, for example, children have to be harmed. We will not understand why people make the choices that they do. But as we begin to surrender our egocentric way of being, our human-centric way, towards managing or surrendering into our moving into our soul-centric way of living, we begin to understand that the true nature of love is not the human idea of love at all, and it is the only truth, and it does not actually exist in the dream. Our job is to awaken to that truth, and that's where we inherit heaven now, heaven on earth, as above so below, as within so without. That is the true state that we are all awakening towards. All of us are on that journey of awakening, and it's simply a matter of time. And you know, even that is a silly thing to say, because the dimensions of time and space don't really exist. But what I mean is that we are all going there. That's where the path leads, my darling, and we get to go there with joy, or we get to go kicking and screaming. So if you are in a state of fear right now, I'm not asking for you to belittle what you're feeling. I'm asking you to go and meet it fearlessly, to recognize that on the other side of that fear is your truth, and that only love is real, and that love is big, bold, powerful compassion. It isn't about everything having to feel nice and comfortable, because that's not at all what this is all about. It's about being willing to meet yourself as God, and that takes great courage to put down the littleness, to put down the stories, no matter how horrific the stories are. When we remind ourselves that we are currently inhabiting a dream that is designed to activate us to remember our unlimited God consciousness, then everything begins to make sense. And then the more you meet your fear, the more you become attuned to that love frequency, and there is very little that will be difficult to understand. And it's absolutely, yes, go with joy. It's absolutely possible to live from that place regardless of what is in the dream in front of you. You know, calling it a dream does not mean to reduce its well, it does actually. I do want to reduce its authority over you. What I want to ask you again is to echo Caroline Myss's words, is to navigate by this. What will you do with your pain? There are life situations you cannot change, but you always have a choice about how you respond, and in that you will find your freedom. Okay, beloveds, thank you for joining me. I'm going to go hop back in the pool. So much love to you all. I'll be doing some more lives while we're here, of course, until we go into retreat next week. And it's such a joy to share with you. This is definitely happening in my life because of that willingness to meet fear and to receive its blessing, to turn it into gold. So, mwah, have a beautiful day.